I hope that my kids see that work is a really important part of my life because it's the thing that we're going to do more of than maybe like sleep might be a little bit more, but like it's the thing we're going to do most of in our entire lives. And it's really important to have meaningful work to be able to move things forward, but also just blocking the time to take care of myself and to build meaningful relationships with the people around me too, and making sure that they understand that it's an important part of my life, but it's not my life.
Welcome to Gap to Gig, the show for dads navigating the in-between season when work, identity, and priorities start asking different questions. Here we talk about what that season looks like and how to move through it with intention. I'm your host, Michael Jacobs, and today's guest is someone who proves you can build a thriving consulting firm without losing the parts of life that matter most. Alex Tuck is the founder and managing principal of Tuck Consulting Group, a remote-first project management firm built around a simple belief: work should fit into life, not the other way around. Alex runs his company from a farm in Vermont, where he and his wife are raising 4 children. He leads a team that values flexibility, diverse perspectives, and sensible balance. And he models that balance himself by time boxing both work and personal time, blocking his calendar for family commitments, workouts, and rest just as intentionally as he blocks it out for clients. Alex, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here today.
Michael, thank you so much for having this show and for having me on it. I really think it's going to be a great resource for dads.
I appreciate that. So, to get us started, I want to go right to the heart of your philosophy. You've said that your calendar is blocked for both personal and professional time, and that the structure is what allows everything else to work. So, I want to begin there. How did time boxing become such a core part of your approach to balancing work and fatherhood, and what does it kind of look like in your daily life?
Yeah, I'm probably like a similar to many entrepreneurs out there, like constantly trying to get better and better and feeling like I'm not quite there yet. And so we've all tried every single system out there at some point or another. And then I came across an article. I think I was reading an article in like Harvard Business Review or someplace where they had this concept of time boxing, and it really resonated with me. So I just started like digging in, and started doing it. I've been doing it for 5 6 years now, and I'm constantly like tinkering with it a little bit, but it's never perfect, right? And so like I'm constantly like improving upon it, and so just being creative with like how I can block my time and get the most value out of the limited amounts of time that we have. I've been working on it for a really long time. So.
Can you kind of just walk me through, like, what does a block of time for you represent? Like, what does a day of time blocking or a week of time blocking kind of look like?
Oh my goodness. So I'll talk about it professionally first, and then we can talk about the personal stuff. So professionally, we run our entire company leveraging quarterly objectives and key results, OKRs. And so those OKRs, this quarter, we have 5 OKRs across our entire operations, 5 most important things, that objectives that we want to achieve across our company. Then we break those objectives down into key results, like think of SMART goals, right? So there's maybe 3 4 SMART goals underneath those objectives that are really going to move the needle with the things that matter most to us, whether it's marketing, sales, service delivery, any of those things.
Right.
We as a team decide that, hey, these are the handful of things that we're really going to focus on. And then below that, we have project plans for each one of those KRs, right? And so it's all decomposition, right? And any project manager that's listening to this or anyone that's heard about project management knows about this decomposition. But then, once you have those tasks underneath, you have to actually execute those tasks.
Right.
And so those are the most important things for our company, right? Those aren't the table stakes things. Like, you have to send your invoices, you have to do the things, every single day. But we take those KRs, and then they each get like an hour-long block, 90-minute block, 30-minute block, depending on how much the task is expected to take. And my entire calendar, it's pretty, I mean, like, my friends joke with me about it because it's color coded and it's filled from top to bottom. It's not meetings, it's just stuff. And right after this, 50 minutes from now, I'm gonna hop off and go on my 1 hour run block, right? Which involves 10 minutes of getting ready, going inside the house and getting ready, and then doing the run and then coming out of it. So that like, paints a little bit of a picture about what happens there. And then we do the same thing on our personal calendars as well, my wife and I. So
So each of those blocks is very intentional, right? Like you
yeah,
are that block of time, that period of time is you are focused on that particular
yeah,
action that you need to take. So
yeah,
whether that's
ruthlessly focused on it. So you know, the thing I learned most about this and anything else is you have to be kind to yourself, right? Because if you're on a roll and you have a time block that's 60 minutes and you only need like 10 or 15 more minutes to get that thing done, then you might look at what's coming up next and maybe slide that for 30 minutes or move it to tomorrow. So it's not that it's like rigid. It's just that it's what you've committed to doing. And so being very intentional about how long you think things are going to take and really trying to complete it even within less time of that. Then you get bonus time. Like I always recommend to people, give yourself more time than you think you need. And then if you get it done earlier, which most of us probably won't even get it done earlier, but if we do get it done earlier, you get bonus time.
right,
Get to take a little walk, grab some food, say hi to your kids, do whatever it is.
right.
So
Love that. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
And within those blocks, like it allows you to focus more because you've broken it down. You've broken that task down into exactly what you have to focus on then.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah. And it feels so good. Like when I look at my calendar for the day and at the end of the day, and I'm like, all right, I said I was going to do all these things and I actually achieved all those things, or like I accomplished certain feats within those tasks. I'm really happy. And that includes going downstairs for 30 minutes to like grab lunch and like chat with whatever kids home or chat with my wife. That includes getting a run in, right? Transition times, all those things, they all really matter. And it's rare that I get it all perfect, right?
right.
But when I have those days, it feels so good, right? And and then you see actual results. Like you actually start seeing like, okay, your OKRs are moving forward and the blog is moving forward or whatever it is that
Yeah.
you're working on.
I love that. It's a great reminder that we also need to feel like what we're doing means something. And to do that, you have to feel that sense of accomplishment, right? And
That's
like
right.
this is kind of like a hyper focused way to get to that point of when things do go right and you get through your time block and you've accomplished the goals that those time blocks were set up to do, you do get that sense of accomplishment. That does feel good. That's a good way to take care of yourself almost, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, on a personal level, we do the same thing. So, everything goes on the calendar. Like my biggest accomplishment, personal accomplishment of my life is convincing Isabel, my wife, to get a joined Google Calendar and getting us both to adopt it because um it's changed the way that we can communicate and collaborate together. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist for us, right?
yeah,
And so, you know, the obvious things like basketball practice, whatever, soccer, those things go on the calendar. Our personal stuff, like I want to get a long run in on Sunday, like that goes on the calendar. And we decide together, what that looks like. But then there's the other things that are less obvious, like, let's say I want to spend 15 minutes a day reading with each of my kids, right? That's not, I have 4 kids, right? That's not reasonable to try to achieve every single day. How do we split that up across the entire week, right? And so if it's on the calendar, we actually do it, or we at least know that it's intentional that we want to do that. And if we have to move it for some reason, we'll move it. So it's just a great visual for how to do it. I'll say one more thing before I can ramble for a while, but I run a project management consulting firm. I'm a project manager, certified, all that stuff. I'm not a naturally organized person. So if anyone out there thinks that it just doesn't resonate, this kind of time boxing doesn't resonate with them, I will tell you that as a very disorganized person naturally, because I like to scatter and most entrepreneurs are like that, I have to have this structure because then I can't, otherwise I can't achieve the things that I want to
right.
achieve.
That's a great point. That
Yeah,
it's a practical system for you, right?
that's
Because
right.
even though you may not consider yourself to be the most organized, diligent person, this system is something that you can implement that doesn't it doesn't take you all day to block your time, I presume, right? You can do it
Yep.
pretty quickly once you've broken down those tasks into what you want to accomplish for that day, and it works for you at the end of the day. So, like, time blocking may work for me too. Maybe mine just looks a little bit different. It has to be something that can still it's manageable for me. It's not
That's right.
going to bring an
Yeah.
overwhelm. Yeah,
Yeah, I have colleagues that really, they live with ADHD and like so it's really hard for them to context switch, right? And so time boxing looks very different for them than it does for me. Like I can spend 50 minutes on a task, give myself an hour and then shift gears and go right to the next thing, right? That's not a challenge for me. So that time box might look a little different. They might spend 2 hours on a task or maybe they'll only tackle like 3 things in the entire day and they time box it that way and they give themselves breaks to get lunch, do physical activity, right? So that the context switch is less.
that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Appreciate you bringing that up. So let's talk about your firm a little bit. Most consulting firms center their culture on profit, utilization, and things of that nature. You intentionally built yours around flexibility and family. What pushed you in that direction?
I will say something. We don't have a single metric tied to revenue or profitability that we track. We are profitable and we have great revenue growth, but we don't have none of our metrics are focused on that. And so I started my company 13 years ago. So my long story sort of short is that I worked in finance, made a bunch of money, helped rich people get rich and realized that was not my calling in life. And so I switched and I started a micro lending a nonprofit that does work in Central America and took all the money that I made and started this thing and worked for free for 4 years and then was like, all right, I need to come back and make money again. Got the nonprofit to a place where it was sustainable and run by itself in Central America. And then I came back and started this firm and I pitched myself on all these Obamacare contracts until I ended up landing on one here in Vermont. And so I wasn't really intentional with how I started the company. I just knew that like I had this talent and I wanted to be sort of in control of what I was doing. So started this company. And then along the way, I actually got hired by a few different firms. I was an independent consultant, but then I got hired by some firms and joined some of these big management consulting firms. And they were awesome. Like I loved the people that I worked with. I thought the ability to climb the ladder, there was always great opportunity there. There's opportunity to make enough money to support my family. But everything was focused on revenue. Everything was focused on growth. Everything was focused on that. And I even went to a mid-sized consulting firm and had the same like I said, I was never going to work for another management consulting firm. Then there I went and did it, and I thought it was going to be different. And it wasn't any different. And so
Right.
6 years ago, I sort of dusted off my company, relaunched, and I wanted to start. I wanted to intentionally build a company that was focused on not just utilization targets, not on revenue, not on any of that stuff, not on growth. I wanted to be focused on adding value for our customers, right? Like, so we look at ourselves as enablers for furthering the mission and vision of our clients. So our clients have to be focused on having a net positive impact on the world, right? And so, like, we look at ourselves as enablers to help these organizations achieve that. So that was one of the things that we knew was important. But then also we wanted to take care of our staff. And we actually have a really interesting model where we have very few employees. It's almost all independent consultants because we valued the flexibility that that brought to all of our customer or all of our consultants. And so we have folks, dads and moms that live in parts of the country that there is not a lot of economic opportunity. And they might be caregivers for their parents. They might be caregivers for a kid. They might be caregivers for whomever. They can only work 20 hours a week and they can do that here. Right. So long answer to your question, but that was the main reason was like we wanted to create a different management consulting model that wasn't focused purely on utilization and revenue growth.
That's awesome. I love that. How has living on a farm shaped your rhythms and routines and approach to all of this of, finding that right balance at work?
Well, I'm looking outside right now and I see my two chicken coops over there. And and I'm looking at about 25 inches of snow out in my field. And this morning I woke up. My wife and I have this. We each get an hour every single day where we each watch a kid or two, and the other person gets to go off and do their thing. And in the mornings, we have 15 minutes where each of us, like, she goes and does chores and like spends time with the animals. And like, I did a snowshoe this morning, right? So just walked around my property and just looked at how amazing everything is. And sometimes if I have enough time, I'll just take a loop around the property. It's just so different. Like, it's just like so fun to be so close to nature that way, even though I'm working with people all across the country working on tech. So
Right. That sounds awesome. Even, I mean, that's a way to enjoy snow, right? Like you're not,
that's right.
yeah, you can just go outside, throw on some snowshoes and kind of go explore. That's awesome.
That's right. And I'll say this, like, it's the funny thing is my wife and I sort of flipped a double-headed coin about where we were going to live. I'm from Virginia and she's from Vermont, and then we decided on Vermont, and we're really close to her family and we have cousins everywhere. It's awesome. Like, love living in Vermont. But I was like, all right, well, my career's over, right? Like, what am I going to do up here? Like, I'm going to work on a maple sugaring farm or something, like
Right.
that. But then, we created this opportunity. Like, remote work became like a pillar of of how we operate here in the United States. And it's the perfect place. And now I get to run a company and live in a really amazing place.
That's so cool. I love that. So, what do you think dads in general get wrong when they assume they need to sacrifice everything to build a successful business? You clearly are able to have time for yourself, have time for your family, and have time to build this business that is serving a purpose, right? And
Yeah.
it's meaningful work to you. What do you think we get wrong when trying to assume we have to put all of our energy into one thing, or just into our work, or just into our home?
Yeah, I mean, our culture is I think we're finally, like, honestly, I think we're learning from Gen Zers and the alphas that, um, work isn't everything, right? And I think that something that's unique to fathers in general, and it's not every single person, and not don't wanna gender stereotype at all here, but there's this propensity to feel like you have to be the provider and the caregiver. And so we look at our value, like, as a society, we look at males as, the ones that need to generate revenue, and you need to give as much effort as you can into work because that's how we generate revenue,
Right.
right? I think that's culturally, it's a gross generalization, but I think that's sort of where a lot of dads get that feeling. I think that what I've learned over time is that the more time that I spend uh, going on runs, reading books, doing my own hobbies, taking care of myself,
Yeah.
and same thing with my partner. She is able to take that time, take care of herself. That makes us better parents, and that, honestly, that makes us better leaders in companies. That makes us better service providers to our clients, like all the above, right? But it's scary to do that. And, sometimes I think your pricing might be wrong. The market might not be there for exactly the service that you're trying to provide. And so there might need to be some pushing and pulling with, like, how you can achieve that. But, you know, th- I think the more that you can be intentional about the time that you give to yourself, the higher quality you're going to have with the outputs that you're creating at work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's easy to focus on what you need to get done each day, right? It's easy to focus on your job. It's easy to it can be easy to focus on your family. Like, they're there, they're present, and you want to be present for them. And it's so easy to be like, yeah, we'll go play one more game, or we'll go do one more thing together.
Yeah.
But you can't do either of those if you don't take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be around to do that. And take care of yourself is more than just the physical exercise. Yeah, we need to exercise and everyone should do it. But you also have to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally, and find ways to recharge yourself. And sometimes that is with family. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just need time for yourself, depending on, how introverted or extroverted you may be. So I love how you emphasize the importance of taking care of yourself because it's so easy. I found, at least for me as a dad, it was very easy, especially early on, to like, I'll worry about myself later. I'll get
Yeah.
to that, right? It's so easy to focus on what's in front of you. And unless you're standing in front of a mirror, what's in front of you is usually your work or your family or whatever other commitments that you have to keep, right? But we can't be there in the long run for those things if we don't take care of ourselves too. So I
Yeah.
love how your focus on that is it's so important and so valuable to not just yourself, but those you care about most, right?
Yeah.
Because they want you to be there. They want you to be around. They need you there. And it's, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't be there when they need you, when they want you. Uh,
Yeah. I think, that brings up a really interesting point that like I still struggle with it too, but we live with such guilt, right? Like we're such guilt focused society, right? And I do. I feel guilty. Like when my kid's like, "Dad, I want to play another game of, whatever, zoo, whatever the seek and find thing." I want to play with him. Like I want to, but then I'm like, "Dude, you got to go to school and I need to go to work. Like we need to do this thing, right?" And so this guilt sets in, but then you have to realize that like, okay, there is a limit to everything. There's a cost of every single decision that we make, right? And he's gonna be better off getting ready for school. I'm gonna be better off getting ready for work, and we can play it again later, right? So
yeah, it's, I think what's so important about that is that you're modeling that expectation for them, right? Of like, we can't just play the same matching game all day, every day. We have other responsibilities, other things in order for us to be happy and successful and healthy. And you can't just do whatever you want whenever you want. There are limitations to that, but at the same time, it's equally important to find time to do those things, right? To play those games with your kids, to read with them, to share your interests with them and to hear what is interesting to them, right? You have to find that right balance. And for everybody it's different and every day is different. But what you like, you could choose to, yeah, you know what, you're not going to go to school today. We're just going to stay home and play games. What lesson are you teaching your kids at that point?
right.
Maybe you do it once and it's fun and it's like a core memory and it's cool and
Sure.
everything, but you can't do that on a daily basis. But on the
No.
flip side of that, you also probably can't be working 20 hours a day or 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if that's the behavior you're demonstrating to your kids, is that what you want them to model as they get older? Right.
That's
So
right.
it's important to think of it of more than just like, yeah, there's a more of a long-term outlook. I think is what I'm trying to say of just, you have to demonstrate what you want to, or you hope they eventually can pick up. And that means, yeah, work is important. So is being home. So is doing the chores. So are, the things that are important to you and taking time for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because you
Love
don't
that.
want them to grow up to be, have unhealthy habits of like, oh yeah, I should just be working. I shouldn't be doing anything else ever. And I should neglect the
That's right.
people that are important to me. So remote work can kind of blur a lot of lines, right? How do you, especially when you're doing it yourself and you're at home and, you've got the kids wanting to, play a game with you or they need help with something or some chore needs to get done. How do you keep presence at home from turning into distraction? And how do you keep your work from creeping into family time?
I mean, if anyone has a perfect answer to this, like I want to hear it. But let's see. There's a couple of things that I have. I'm very fortunate that I have a separate space, right? So when I go to work, it's better. It's great for me too. Like, I mean, they talk about when you work remotely, you lose that commuter like downtime for finishing up your day where you get to just decompress. So I'm fortunate. I have to go outside, walk through my 18 inches of snow, get hit with the sub-zero temperatures
Yeah.
and go to work and vice versa. So, not everyone's as fortunate as I am to be able to do that, but just having a separate space in the house is really, really effective for being able to turn on and turn off work. And so my office is up there. up here. And then the other thing that I'm really more intentional about, I'm not perfect at it, but I leave my phone in another room. I have this like charging room, like it's where, you know, cat has her food and like all this stuff. And then there's, it's just more of a storage room. And I go put my phone in there and it's so unpleasant to like walk all the way back there and go into there anyway
Right.
that it's like my work's stuck back there in the corner. And so I have to be really intentional about like going and grabbing that phone and being re-engaged. But my wife and I really try to like not use our phones at all in front of our kids. We are not successful at that
Yeah.
at all as much as we want to be. But I think that real intentional action to separate the work from your personal space is really important. The other tip that I would just say is like I have modes, different focus modes and stuff that turn on at different points of the day. So basically 6 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. like all my work apps block. So like I can't even get into them or get a notification if I want to. So
Interesting. So
yeah.
you kind of, you said you have these different modes or different times of the day that are specific for certain things, but you have 4 young kids, and sometimes that can feel overwhelming, right? There are times of there's just so much going on. How do you adapt your work rhythms then when family life becomes more demanding?
Oh yeah, interesting. So again, it goes back to time boxing, right? So we it's hard. My wife and I like we have really long talks about this. It's like my kids my wife coaches our Nordic ski program. So she coaches kids here. And so like my 6-year old, my 8-year old, my 10-year old all ski from 3:45 to 5:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Like what does that do to your workday?
Right.
means your workday's done before 3 o'clock.
Right.
But you block that time and then you intentionally like I come back up to my office and I work after if I need to, but it's very intentional. Like we go day by day and say, all right, this is how we handle this particular challenge. Kids get sick, it's like, all right, like who's gonna take what shift where. I'm lucky my wife's home with the kids. She runs the nonprofit still, but she's mostly able to focus on the family, which is a huge help for us, especially with young kids before she goes back to working again, or working full time again. But still, she needs her personal time, right? So I block an hour and a half during the day so that she can get out and like get a run in or get a ski in or whatever it is. So, I think it's just like understanding that life changes
Yep.
at a rapid pace and then also understanding what happens all the time and what decisions like what are you gonna allow your kids to do and what are you not gonna allow for them to do and how do you work your schedule around it.
Yep. I love that. So there's those times then where you probably feel like you're stretched pretty thin, right? And it's like, okay, well, what are we going to decide on for what the kids are going to do and kind of how we're going to split this up? What are there any early signs that tell you like, maybe we need to slow down a little bit? And what would those what would those signs be? And like, how do you reset things kind of after they break a little bit?
Yeah, oh my god, all the time. They happen they break all the time, right? Like they absolutely like I mean, because especially my wife is also as crazy as I am, right? Like she likes to get every drop out of every single experience. Like, I mean, you should see our itinerary for when we travel, right? Like we are like we probably do in like a 1 week what like most people would do like on 4 or 5 different trips. But like we really want to get it all in. And so things break often, but like we check in with ourselves all the time. We have a schedule that the kids can see every single week. They see what's coming. They know that like they get home from school and they have to like eat really quickly and then go to ski practice. Like they know that that's coming. We talk about it in the morning and then we get it going. But I think again, it goes back to that kindness, right? Like kindness to yourself and kindness to other people around you. And just know that like we're all just testing things,
Yeah.
right? And so just being able to improve slightly every single time. The only way you're going to be able to do that is if you're kind to yourself.
Yeah. I love that. I like how you're willing to give yourself a little bit of grace, right? You're willing to like, yeah, things aren't going to be perfect. That's okay.
Yeah.
And we recognize that. And we're in this together, right? You're in a partnership, right? And so, yeah, not everybody's fortunate enough to have a partner, or
That's right.
they might go through a season where they don't have a partner. And in that case, like, who can you rely on? Like, this is, I think being a dad is a team sport, right?
Oh, yeah.
it's, I've been a single dad. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but you find help from others. And that help isn't always like, oh, yeah, I'll watch your kids while you go do this. Sometimes it's just you got to talk it through. Right. And same thing, like when you are stretched thin, like, yeah, sometimes it's not going to work out. That's okay. We're going to learn from this and kind of move on. Something else I kind of picked up from what you're saying is that there's a little bit of preparation that allows you to do this, right? Of like, yeah, we know that when we go on vacation, it's going to be packed, from morning to night. And so we know there are going to be some hiccups along the way, but we've mentally prepared ourselves for that happening. So it becomes a little bit easier, I think, to grasp in the moment. So when things do break or you do feel stretched too thin, it's like it's not as overwhelming, right? Because you've planned for it. You know that these things are going to happen. Nothing is perfect. And you're giving yourself that grace to be like, yeah, you know what? It's okay. Next time we'll
Yeah.
do it a little bit differently. And this is what we learned from it, but we'll get through it and still
Yeah.
enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I love that. Like, love what you're saying there. A couple things come like the first thing about having the additional support systems, right? Like, yeah, I mean, Isabel's going. She's celebrating her 40th birthday this weekend with her friends. In Canada. She's gonna be in another country, and so it's like, all right, 8 o'clock basketball practice. Like, hey, Kale, can you help me cover this? Can you drop Jay off at practice and I'll pick him up. And, so there's that. And, running's really a really awesome like networking tool and outlet for me. Like my best friends in my entire life are from my high school track and cross country team. My best friends in the area right now are a running group that we pulled together just from posting on our local message boards, right? And we're out there and we're talking about politics that like it's crazy. It's like we live in a really interesting time right now, and like we're able to process the things, and we don't have the same political views, and but we're still able to talk through it. And we do talk about like how things are really challenging in our lives, and like how do you manage like going to this practice and that practice, and how is your relationship, and all the things, right? And if you don't have that, it's really hard. So that was the one thing. The other thing I wanted to say is like I think going back to being like planful about everything you're doing. Like our kids are 4, 6, 8, and 10, right? Really young, but they still participate. Like we still ask them, like, hey, are you all okay with us, you know, taking on this sort of itinerary? Is there something you want to change about it? One thing that our oldest daughter mentioned when she was 8 was like, "This is really going." I feel like we're always rushing in the airports, right? Like from one place to another. And it's really stressful for us, and so we chose some connections that were a little bit less tight, just to be able to create an experience that was better for them. And so, but we didn't learn. I mean, it was a complete failure the first time. She was so stressed, and but you have to take the inputs from everyone, even
Yep.
though these little minds are a little different. So
Right. Yeah, and you don't know it until you've experienced it yourself, right? Like, I could tell you, connections are really tough, especially when you have little ones, but how meaningful is that to you until you've gone through it yourself, right? And then your
that's
kids can
right.
point out, like, that is stressful,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
How do you encourage your team to take time off, to unplug, to build their work around their life, right? Like, you clearly do it very well yourself, but how do you encourage those that work for you or work with you to do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's modeling, right? And other people model it for me too. I definitely don't have it all figured out, right? And so for me, I put my entire calendars public, including my own personal calendar. And so not my whole personal calendar, but my personal events on my work calendar. they're in there. We block off, like I block off my sleep time and my personal time. And so like everyone sees like, all right, you want to reach out to me, like here's the windows that you can reach out to me. And if you don't see me, this is why you can't see me. Right. And so so public calendars I think really help, and modeling as a leader. And then take a lot of time off too, intentionally. Like we have unlimited PTO, which is usually a trick, but because I'm modeling that I'm taking, 4 weeks off, plus like we close couple like 2.5 weeks of the year, 3 weeks of the year. People see that like taking 7 weeks off, even for the leader of the company, like, our company continues to grow every single year, right? And so that's not hurting us, right? And if anything, it's helping us. And so everyone feels really comfortable to do that. Or like, some people on my team, they don't. I personally don't take meetings before 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Because that's my focus time. Other people don't want to get up until 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and don't want to get online until 10 or 11. So, you know, there's this culture where everyone understands what everyone's doing. And then we have some consultants that they're in the phase of their lives, a little bit younger than I am, right? Where they don't have kids yet, and they're like, all right, I'm ready to grind. I did it. I mean, I worked 80, 100-hour weeks,
Yep.
and it was a very fun experience. I learned a lot. Would never recommend that to people, but some people just have to go through that experience to understand that that's not for them
Right.
too. And so, you know, I'll give unsolicited feedback sometimes and say, "Hey, have you thought about, maybe transitioning and, stopping doing that?" But, I think every single person is able to. I mean, that's the nice thing about, the culture that we've created. They are able to create the life that fits their needs.
That's
So,
awesome. I like how you model the expectation, right? Like
yeah.
you want people to put family first and take care of themselves, but you do it by doing it yourself, right? You take
Yep.
that time off. You're not afraid to take 4 weeks off a year plus the time that your office is closed. You're not afraid to go for a run in the middle of the day. And it shows, right? You're not just telling them, you're modeling the behavior. And
Yep.
also like there's this open line of communication. It sounds like you guys share your calendars, right? That is communicating in a way, especially if you're time blocking, it's probably like your language, right? And I think it's beyond just at work, right? At home too. It's the same thing. Like if you want your kids to model certain behavior, you do it yourself, right? And you have that open line of communication of like, this is how I'm doing it, this is why I'm doing it. And they learn to understand that better than it just like writing it out for them, right? You could send your kids an
Yeah.
email. What good is that going to do? Probably nothing, right? But
Yeah.
if you show them like, yeah, dad likes to stay physically active and dad likes to, make sure that the house is clean on a regular basis and like does a couple extra things, like they'll start to pick up on that stuff. I think a lot more than
Oh
you
yeah.
just telling them like, oh yeah, you need to wash the dishes today.
I have two girls and two boys, and like again, I hate focusing on gender stereotypes, but oh my god, my boys are so different than the girls, and and they are absolutely wild. And it could be birth order and all these other things too, right? And just individual personalities, but that's just what we have.
Yeah.
And you know, we've tried so many different, like read every single parenting book, like tried to, read every single blog, tried to figure out like, okay, how do I compel these young boys to focus on bedtime, chilling out, going to sleep, or whatever it may be, right? Or like, hey, we got to stop playing this game now, got to get to school, right? Please don't hit me or like pinch me or do whatever the things are that you do, like that your little body is just telling you to do.
Right.
And one of the things that we've read that's really been effective is, instead of just like trying to tell them, to force them to do, like, because sometimes there's a time and place where maybe you have to try to force it, but instead you like sort of ride the current out, right?
Yep.
And you go with them, and you're like, all right, you guys are gonna be crazy, like let's do this thing, and like let's try to figure it out. But like, what do you think's fair? Like, like let's be crazy for another 2 minutes, and then you think that's enough, and then we can chill out and go to bed, right? And that has been working so effectively, right? And I'll go and lay down with them, and like there's just like these little things that you realize that you can model, or you can go with the flow versus trying to demand. It's so much more effective. It works in the workplace and every place else too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So,
Right.
yeah.
'Cause then they feel involved in the process, right?
That's right.
Right, involved in the
Right.
decision, like, they feel like they have some
Yeah.
autonomy then, right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about it, as they get older, if you start modeling their behavior, they will immediately stop doing it because that is, like,
Oh my god.
most
No, it's the
unopening
best.
ever.
I've seen some of the funniest things where it's like, "All right, let's do role play. All right,
Yeah.
you all act like me,
Right.
and I'm gonna act like you. All
Yep.
right," and then we do it, and it's silly, and we all laugh, and things are fine. Like we understand how we should model,
Yep.
and how we should act. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, speaking of your kids, you're raising them while you're running a business, and they, I assume, have some sort of a front row seat to what you're doing. What do you hope your children learn from watching you work?
I hope that my kids see that work is a really important part of my life because it's the thing that we're gonna do more of than maybe, like, sleep might be a little bit more, but, like, it's the thing we're gonna do most of in our entire lives, and it's really important to have meaningful work to be able to move things forward, but also just blocking the time to take care of myself and to build meaningful relationships with the people around me too, and making sure that they understand that it's an important part of my life, but it's not my life,
Yeah,
you know? So,
absolutely. I love that. I like that relationships comes to the forefront, right? Like, I think for me personally, I don't think I value the relationships I had earlier in my life, right? And I realize the value of relationships now, and I'm watching my kids develop their relationships and their friendships, and they're so easy to make friends with. And it's like that is we don't necessarily think about that kind of stuff, right? Especially as we're raising our kids of like, are they going to be able to get along with others? And are other people going to want to be around them? And if you want somebody to be around you, it's a two-way street, right? Our relationship is both ways. And it's very easy to not model that for the kids, but also, you hopefully you're demonstrating to them like relationships are a good thing, right? And it's an important thing for kids. And it's just something I think as a dad, like, I don't think we give it enough credit.
oh my god, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I tell my kids, like, "Hey, it's important for you to understand that I'm your parent, and sometimes, like, you're gonna have to take my word for it, right, that this is this is the right thing for you right now, right? And my goal is to help you understand how to make these good decisions on your own, right?
Yep.
And I'm trying to include you as much as I can. But part of it is, like I also I think it's important to be a friend to your kid too, in a way, right? Build that kind of friendship relationship with them as well. It's not they're your friend, right? Because I mean, it's important for all those different dynamics of being a parent to exist, but teaching them how to have a relationship with you, have a relationship with the siblings, right?
Yeah.
And not just talk about it, right? But to actually play it out, right? It's like, all right, yeah, you're beating up your brother, like not cool, right?
Right.
But why is that happening? And how is your relationship going to develop into the future? Is that something you really want to have, right?
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So before we get into the speed round, I have two more questions I want to run by you. We talked a lot about time boxing, and on the surface, to me, it seems straightforward, but maybe in actually implementing it, it could be complicated for some. If someone wanted to try your method of time boxing, but feels uncomfortable blocking personal time on their calendar, what's kind of a low barrier way to just get started that still leads to some sort of significant change over time?
Yeah, I mean, okay, if you're scared to do the whole day, right? Which I know a lot of people are, or they don't feel like they can succeed. One thing I do is I have a half hour block at 9:30 every single day, and it's just like set my daily schedule, right? And you can do as much as you want with that or as little as you want with that.
Yeah.
But I honor that little block more than anything in my entire day. And it's a great place to start because even with that half hour, you're intentionally thinking about what you're going to do with your day. Maybe you just write 3 goals on the board, maybe you do something, to achieve that. But um, one guy that I really like, Mark, he reached out to me because I was one of the handful of people that actually wrote about time boxing on LinkedIn back before it was cool, I guess, or I still don't think it's cool.
Yeah.
But Mark's Outstander, he has an awesome, he put out a book called Time Boxing. He has an awesome newsletter. It's free. You can get it. Man, he has some amazing tips, and he is like the master time boxer, right? Like, I mean, just absolutely incredible. And you can just pick something from some of his emails because you don't have to do it all, right? You can just say, hey, look, he sent an email and it's like, all right, I want to implement this thing now. So those are my 2 tips, right? Like, spend half an hour thinking about your day, no matter what it is, right? And then sign up for his newsletter. I think it's definitely worth it.
Very cool. Love that.
Yeah.
All right. One more question. Then I want to get to the speed round.
Sure.
Beyond the office, how can dads create a small routine or signal at home that helps them feel more present, reduce stress, kind of, but most importantly, help, you know, themselves and their parents, or themselves and their kids feel more connected.
I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's the phones. Like, I mean, these things are the most toxic thing and most enabling thing, positively enabling thing that has come across humankind
Yes.
probably. And man, like just creating a technology-free space for you to connect. It's like it's not always 100% possible. Like I let my kids watch tablets. I do, like we do things like that, but putting that putting that phone in another room and making eye contact and paying attention to them and not flipping the TV on, like that's unbelievable. Like it's an unbelievable change. It tells your kids like this, you're more important than this phone or this TV,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a end all be all, like all the time thing. Like you could start
yeah,
small, right? Like 15 minutes, just, hey, put the phone in another room and we're going to play a game or we're going to talk or we're going to do something together. Right.
yeah.
And, next thing you know, that 15 minutes, next time is 30 minutes. And, you can start to build momentum behind that. So I love
Oh
that
yeah,
advice. It's
love
great
it. Yeah,
advice. All right. Time for the speed round if you're ready.
yeah. Let's do it.
5 quick questions have nothing to do with anything, but we have some fun doing it. What's the first kids show theme song that comes to mind?
Daniel Tiger Neighborhood. I was just running on the treadmill yesterday, and I had to get my run in because Isabel wasn't here, and Eddie needed some entertainment, so we watched Daniel Tiger together.
This I may regret asking that question ever again because now Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood is going to be stuck in my head for a very long time. I haven't heard that song in ages. It immediately,
It's there.
yeah, you just flipped the switch that I did not want flipped on. I asked the question, so that's on me. What
So good.
Yeah, what was your very first job?
First job, it was an illegal under the table job, but I did it at the age of 12. I worked at a Japanese steakhouse, back of the house.
Very cool. Would you rather spend 24 hours with a toddler-sized T-Rex or a T-Rex-sized toddler?
I'll take my chances with the T-Rex.
Toddler-sized T-Rex. Okay. Any particular reason?
I feel like I might have more of a fighting chance.
Ok What's your go-to karaoke song or the one you'd sing if you needed to?
Not one, but any Journey song. I'll
Okay.
sing it all, I feel like it has to fit into the night. Hopefully, it's not the 30th time it's been sung that night, though. So
Right. Right. Absolutely. What's the weirdest thing you've ever carried around in your bag, briefcase, or pockets?
my kids are all of them, like, even the oldest, like, they're all really into these, like, little stuffies, right? Like, and they pretend like they're real, and sometimes, like, they'll be like, "Dad, can you take care of it?" And I and then it shows up at the conference with me in my pocket. So
That's great.
I think that's probably the weirdest for sure.
That's awesome. Guess you always have a reminder at home then.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Alex. Before we wrap up, I want to give you space to share more about your work. Where can listeners go if they want to learn more about the Tuck Consulting Group or connect with you or kind of explore the resources, opportunities that you offer?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, best way to do it. I'm obsessed with LinkedIn as a place to connect on the internet. I think it's such a great resource, and I love to share my connections with other folks. So please connect with me on LinkedIn for sure. It's just linkedin.com/in/Alex Tuck, easy. And then, and obviously, you can go to our website, tuckconsultinggroup.com, and book some time there. Check out our resources. Lots of cool stuff that our consultants are putting out there. But Mike, just really appreciate you having me here.
Oh, my pleasure, Alex. This is awesome. This is really powerful because your life and your work, it shows that like balance isn't an accident, right? Like you've made clear choices. You've been very intentional. You've created a culture that demonstrates this intention, and you show the courage to protect your time, that especially the time that matters most. So I appreciate you giving dads here a blueprint for building meaningful work in a way that still lets you be present at home. Right. So I appreciate you joining us today. And finally, before you go, if you're a dad listening to this and you find yourself in between navigating a season that feels different, head to gap2gig.com and subscribe to the Gap to Gig newsletter. It comes out every Friday. It's a quieter space to reflect on work, life, and what really matters right now. If this conversation resonated, consider sending it to another dad who might need to hear it. Until next time, I'm Michael Jacobs. Thanks for showing up and listening to Gap to Gig.